Face down, you dirty black dog! Down, now!
Two
Now!
cops, one black man. A park full of families on a Saturday morning. Someone called 911, said a black man with a suspicious bag was watching the playground. Lawson slammed his face into the grass.
You stink, you know that? You people always stink.
Officer, I was just reading.
Shut your mouth! Did I say you could talk? Worthless. Your mama should have never had you.
Brennan cranked both arms back.
Please, I can't breathe.
Breathe? You're lucky I don't muzzle you. Sit, stay, like the animal you are.
His body jerked, not fighting, just choking. One desperate twist. The zipper burst open. A dark blue jacket tumbled out onto the grass. 4 silver stars. Lawson's face went ghost white. Because the man he just called worthless outranked every uniform in that entire state. But let's rewind. About 2 hours before all of that, the morning started quiet. The kind of quiet that tricks you into thinking the day's gonna be good. Riverside Park sat on the edge of one of the wealthiest suburbs outside Washington, D.C. Old oaks lined the walking paths. The pond reflected a sky so blue it almost looked fake. Joggers in clean white sneakers circled the trail. Golden retrievers chased tennis balls across fresh-cut grass. A farmer's market buzzed at the north entrance. Organic honey, handmade soap, $12 kombucha. The median household income in this zip code? Over $250,000 a year. The neighborhood was 93% white. Everyone smiled, everyone waved, everything had its place. And then Adrian Powell walked in. He came on foot. No driver, no escort, no uniform, just a man in a plain gray hoodie, faded jeans, and a pair of old running shoes. A worn leather duffel bag hung over one shoulder. His silver hair was cropped close to his head. His back was straight, not stiff, just steady, like a man whose body remembered decades of standing at attention even when his mind was off duty. Adrian picked a bench near the pond, away from the crowd, away from the noise. He sat down, unzipped the duffel bag halfway, pulled out a dog-eared book, a thick history of the American military, cracked it open to a folded page. Then he pulled out a steel thermos, unscrewed the cap, and took a long sip of black coffee. The morning breeze carried the smell of wet earth and fresh bread from the market. A pair of ducks drifted across the pond. A toddler in a yellow raincoat waddled toward them, squealing. Adrian smiled, a real smile, the kind that loosened every hard line on his face. This was his ritual. Every time he was back in the area, he came here. He grew up 6 blocks from this park, back when these streets looked nothing like this. Back when these houses were small and the faces were brown. That was a long time ago. The neighborhood changed. Adrian didn't. Inside his bag, beneath the book and the thermos, sat a neatly folded dark blue jacket in a garment cover. A polished pair of dress shoes wrapped in cloth. A leather portfolio thick with classified briefing notes. He was due at the Pentagon at 2 o'clock. A motorcade would pick him up. But that was hours away. Right now, he just wanted to sit. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen. A text from Colonel Whitfield. Motorcade confirmed for 1400. Pentagon entrance B car 1 standing by. Adrian typed back, copy, at the park. Don't be early. He silenced the phone, slid it back in his pocket, took another sip of coffee, turned the page. An elderly white couple strolled past his bench. The woman caught his eye and smiled. Beautiful morning, she said. Adrian nodded. Sure is. The man tipped his cap. They kept walking. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then, the shift happened. About 30 feet away, a woman sat on a blanket with her 2 kids. White, early 40s, Lululemon jacket, oversized sunglasses. She'd been watching Adrian since he sat down, not watching like someone people watches at a park, watching like someone counting the seconds on a security camera. She pulled her son a little closer, whispered something to her daughter. Then she leaned toward her husband, a man scrolling his phone who barely looked up. "That man," she said. Not loud, but not quiet either. "He's been sitting there with that bag. Just sitting. Who does that?" Her husband glanced over, shrugged. "Looks like he's reading." She shook her head, pulled out her phone. Not to text a friend, not to check Instagram. She dialed 3 numbers, 911, and somewhere on that call she used the word black 3 times in 40 seconds. She described his bag twice. She said suspicious 4 times. She said he was watching children near the playground. Adrian turned another page, sipped his coffee, watched the ducks glide across the water. He had no idea what was coming. And the worst part? The families around him, every single one of them, saw that woman make the call, heard bits of it, understood exactly what was happening. Not one of them said a word. 7 minutes. That's how long it took. 7 minutes between the 911 call and the first patrol car rolling into the Riverside Park lot. Gravel popped under the tires, then a second car pulled in right behind it. No sirens, no lights, just 2 white cruisers sliding in like sharks entering shallow water. Officer Derek Lawson stepped out of the first car. 12 years on the force, stocky build. Mirrored sunglasses even though the morning sun wasn't that bright. His hand rested on his belt, not on his weapon, not yet, but close enough to remind everyone what he was carrying. He walked like a man who believed every square foot of this town belonged to him personally. His partner, Craig Brennan, climbed out of the passenger side. Younger, thinner, eyes darting. He was only 2 years in. Still had enough conscience to feel uncomfortable, but not enough spine to act on it. 2 officers from the second car stayed by their vehicle, arms crossed, watching. Lawson didn't scan the park, didn't look around for a general threat. He locked onto Adrian from 40 yards away like a heat-seeking missile. A black man, on a bench, with a bag, target acquired. They crossed the grass, Lawson in front. Brennan trailing half a step behind and to the left, already flanking without being told. Adrian noticed them coming when they were about 20 feet out. He looked up from his book, set his coffee down on the bench beside him. Lawson stopped 3 feet away, legs apart, hands on his hips. He didn't say good morning, didn't say sir, didn't say excuse me. He just stood there for a few seconds, looking down, letting the silence do the intimidating. Then he spoke. "We got a call. Someone matching your description was seen acting suspicious around the playground area." Adrian closed his book slowly, kept it on his lap. "Acting suspicious how?" "I'm asking the questions here, not you. You got ID?" Adrian studied him for a moment. Calm. The way a man studies a chessboard before deciding his next move. "I've been sitting on this bench for almost an hour, officer, reading a book. I haven't been near the playground." "ID," Lawson repeated, harder. "Now." Adrian reached slowly toward his back pocket. The moment his hand moved, Brennan's right hand dropped to his holster. Click. The snap came undone. "Slowly," Lawson said. "Real slowly. Keep those hands where I can see them at all times." Adrian paused, opened both palms, showed them empty. Then, with 2 fingers, pulled out his wallet and handed over his Virginia driver's license. Lawson snatched it, held it close to his face, read every line like he was studying a forgery. His eyes moved from the card to Adrian's face, back to the card, back to Adrian. Then he read the address out loud. 1422 Briarwood Lane. He let it hang, looked at Brennan, looked back at Adrian. "That's over in Kensington Estates. That's a $500,000 neighborhood." "Closer to 800,000, actually," Adrian said. No attitude, just fact. Lawson's jaw tightened. He tilted his head. "This really your address?" "For the last 15 years. 15 years, in Kensington Estates." Lawson said it the way someone repeats a lie they don't believe. Slow, dripping with doubt. "And what exactly do you do for a living that puts you in Kensington Estates?" "I serve my country. Lawson snorted. Actually snorted. "Serve your country right." He flipped the ID over, then back, held it up toward the sunlight like he was checking for a watermark. "What branch?" "Army." "Army." Lawson looked at Brennan. Something passed between them. A smirk. Shared. Quick. The kind two people exchange when they've already decided someone is lying and now they're just enjoying the show. "You don't look like Army to me," Lawson said. Adrian didn't blink. "What does Army look like to you, officer?" Lawson ignored the question. He turned the license over once more, then slid it into his own shirt pocket, not handing it back, keeping it. A small move, a power move, the kind most people wouldn't even notice. Adrian noticed. "What's in the bag?" Adrian glanced down at the duffel beside him. "Personal belongings." "What kind of personal belongings?" "Clothes, shoes, work materials." "I'm gonna need to see inside that bag." "No." The word landed like a slap. Short, clean, final. Lawson's chin lifted slightly. Brennan shifted his weight behind Adrian, closing the triangle. "Excuse me?" "I said no. I don't consent to a search, officer. You have my ID. I've answered your questions. I haven't committed a crime and you don't have probable cause to search my property." Lawson took off his sunglasses. Slowly. Folded them. Tucked them into his collar. His eyes were small and pale and absolutely furious. Not because Adrian had done anything wrong, but because Adrian knew his rights. And to Lawson, a black man who knew his rights wasn't a citizen, he was a problem. "You a lawyer now?" Lawson said. Quiet, almost a whisper. The dangerous kind of quiet. "I know the Fourth Amendment. That's enough." The Fourth Amendment. Lawson repeated it like it was a joke. Stepped closer, close enough for Adrian to see the razor bumps on his neck, close enough to smell that stale, burnt coffee breath. "Let me tell you what I know. I know I got a call about a suspicious black male with a large bag near a playground full of children. I know you're sitting here with a large bag. I know you got smart with me the second I walked up. And I know that in my experience, my 12 years of experience, people who refuse a simple bag check usually have something to hide." Adrian held his gaze. "I have nothing to hide. I have rights." "Rights," Lawson laughed. One syllable, hard. "You know what? We'll see about your rights." He keyed his shoulder radio. The static crackled like a fuse being lit. "Dispatch, this is Unit 41. I got an uncooperative male at Riverside Park, east side near the pond. Requesting additional unit for backup." Adrian sat perfectly still. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't stood up, hadn't clenched a fist. Uncooperative. That word, that one word on the radio, changed everything. Because once an officer says uncooperative, the next officers who arrive don't show up to talk. They show up to act, and across the park, people were watching. A mother held her daughter's hand and pulled her behind a tree. A jogger stopped mid-stride, earbuds dangling. An old man on a bench across the pond set down his newspaper and stared. They all saw it. They all felt what was building. Nobody moved, except one person. 30 feet to Adrian's left, sitting on the grass with a sandwich in her lap, a black woman named Tanya Greer set down her food. She was a nurse, 36 years old, worked overnight shifts at the county hospital. She came to this park on her mornings off because it was quiet. It wasn't quiet anymore. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, pressed record. Her hands were already shaking. And on a bench near the playground, a white man, mid-30s, baseball cap, sneakers, watched the scene unfold over the top of his phone. His kids were on the swings behind him. He didn't call out, didn't intervene. But he opened his camera, too. 2 angles, 2 witnesses, rolling. Adrian didn't know it yet, but those 2 phones were going to matter more than any badge in that park. The backup unit arrived in under 3 minutes. 2 more officers. Bigger, quieter. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from calm. It comes from not needing to explain what they're about to do. They parked behind Lawson's cruiser and walked across the grass without a word. No introductions, no questions. Lawson gave a single nod toward Adrian, and they split. One to the left, one to the right. 4 officers now, 4 corners. Adrian sat in the center of a box he didn't build and couldn't leave. The sun was warm on his face. Birds were still singing in the oak trees. Somewhere behind him, a child laughed on the swings. The world around Adrian Powell was beautiful. The world closing in on him was not. Lawson turned back to Adrian. The audience had grown. More backup meant more authority. More authority meant fewer consequences. That math lived in Lawson's bones. Stand up. Adrian looked at him. Am I being detained? You are now. Stand up. Hands on your head, fingers interlocked. Adrian didn't move. Not out of defiance. Out of precision. On what charge? I don't need a charge to detain you. I need reasonable suspicion. And you've given me plenty. Now stand up before I stand you up. Adrian exhaled. Long, controlled. The kind of breath a man takes when he's calculating how many ways this can go wrong and deciding to survive all of them. He stood. Slowly. Hands open, palms facing out. He laced his fingers on top of his head without being told twice. His book slid off his lap and landed spine up in the dirt. His thermos tipped and rolled under the bench. Lawson grabbed Adrian's right wrist and wrenched it behind his back. Hard, fast. The shoulder joint screamed. Adrian grunted. A short, involuntary sound pushed out through clenched teeth. Brennan grabbed the left arm, pulled it down, twisted it to meet the right. The metal cuffs came out. Cold steel kissed skin. Click, click, tight, too tight. The edges bit into the wrist bones. Adrian flexed his fingers. They were already tingling. Spread your legs. Lawson kicked Adrian's feet apart from behind. Started patting him down. Rough, not searching, performing. His hands moved slow and hard across Adrian's body. Chest, ribs, waist, hips, down each leg. He squeezed the pockets. Pulled out the silenced phone. Looked at the screen. Tossed it on the bench. Clean, Brennan said. We'll see about that. Lawson turned to the bag. Adrian's voice came steady. I told you, I do not consent to a search of my belongings. And I told you, I've got reasonable suspicion. Lawson crouched beside the duffel bag, unzipped it all the way. The teeth separated with a long metallic growl. He reached inside. First thing out, the garment bag. Heavy, wrapped around something structured. Lawson didn't open it, just tossed it on the grass like it was a gym towel. Next, the polished dress shoes, each one wrapped in a soft cloth. Lawson pulled one out, turned it over, looked at the sole, dropped it in the dirt. Then, the leather portfolio. Thick, zippered. Lawson flipped it open, rifled through the pages. Briefing documents, printed schedules, a Pentagon parking pass clipped to the inside pocket. He didn't read any of it. Didn't even slow down. What is all this? Your little business plan? He held up the portfolio and waved it at Brennan. Brennan laughed, a nervous laugh, but a laugh all the same. Lawson dropped the portfolio on the pile, reached back into the bag, pulled out a toiletry kit, unzipped it, toothbrush, razor, deodorant. He sniffed the deodorant, made a face, tossed it aside. Nothing in here but junk. He said it loud. Loud enough for the families to hear, loud enough to make Adrian small. Adrian stood there, hands cuffed behind his back, watching every item he'd packed that morning get thrown into the grass and dirt like garbage. His jaw was tight, a vein pulsed at his temple, but his eyes were calm, locked forward, fixed on something no one else could see. The discipline of 40 years in uniform doesn't disappear because the uniform is off. Lawson stood up, stepped toward Adrian, got close, too close. The kind of close that isn't tactical. It's personal. You know how many guys I pick up who look just like you? Same hoodie, same bag, same story. I was just reading. I was just sitting. I wasn't doing nothing. He mimicked the words in a high-pitched voice, mocking. And every single time, there's something in the bag. Every single time. Adrian said nothing. So here's what I think. Lawson's voice dropped low, almost intimate. I think you came to this park because it's a nice park. Rich park. Easy targets. I think that bag's got tools in it, or maybe something worse, and I think you got real comfortable thinking no one would call you out. You're wrong, Adrian said. Quiet. No anger. No plea. Just fact. Am I? Lawson smiled. The ugliest kind of smile. The kind that enjoys this. Then why won't you let me search the bag? You already did. The smile vanished. Lawson looked at the pile of Adrian's belongings scattered on the ground. The garment bag, the shoes, the portfolio, the toiletry kit, everything yanked out and thrown around. He hadn't found anything. And that made him angrier. Because Derek Lawson didn't need evidence. He never did. The evidence was Adrian's face. The evidence was the color of his skin, standing in a place Lawson's brain couldn't file him. Get on the ground. I'm already cuffed. I'm not resist. I said get on the ground, now! Lawson grabbed the back of Adrian's neck and forced him downward. Brennan shoved from behind. Adrian's knees hit the grass first, then his chest, then his face. Dirt and grass filled his mouth. The smell of wet soil pressed into his nostrils. The weight came next. Lawson's knee, square in the center of his back. 220 pounds compressing his lungs. Don't move. Don't you even think about moving. Adrian couldn't move, could barely breathe. His cheek was flat against the cold ground. A blade of grass stuck to his lip. He could see sideways. An ant crawling over a clover leaf, a juice box someone's kid had dropped, the blurry shapes of families standing at a distance, watching, still doing nothing. Behind him, a child's voice, small and scared. Mommy, why are they hurting that man? No answer. Tanya Greer's phone was locked on the scene. Tears ran down her face, but her hands held steady now. She'd seen trauma before. She worked in an emergency room. But this was different. This was broad daylight. This was planned. The white father near the playground had moved closer. His camera caught a second angle. The knee on Adrian's back, the scattered belongings, Lawson's face twisted with something that wasn't authority. It was pleasure. 2 videos, 2 angles, every second recorded. And at the bottom of that duffel bag, beneath where the toiletry kit had been, pressed flat against the lining, sat a neatly folded dark blue jacket that none of them had found yet. 4 stars on each shoulder. Waiting. Lawson was breathing hard, not from effort, from adrenaline. The kind that comes from control, the kind that makes a small man feel 10 feet tall. He looked down at Adrian, face in the dirt, cuffed, silent, finished, a conquered thing. Lawson rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, wiped his hands on his pants like he'd touched something he needed to wash off. He turned back to the bag, gave it a shake. Something shifted at the bottom, heavy, flat, pressed against the lining. He hadn't noticed it before because the toiletry kit had been sitting on top of it. Everything else was already on the ground. This was the last thing left. Well, well, almost missed this one. He said it to Brennan, loud enough for Adrian to hear. Always something at the bottom of the bag. Always. He reached in. His fingers closed around fabric, not cotton, not polyester, something denser, heavier. The kind of fabric that fights gravity even when it's folded, the kind that holds its shape no matter how long it's been packed. He grabbed it with one hand and yanked it out, shook it open in the air like a man snapping dust from a bedsheet. The jacket unfolded, dark navy blue, pressed so sharp the creases could slice skin. Gold buttons running down the front, each one polished to a mirror shine. A wall of ribbons above the left breast pocket, red, blue, green, gold, stacked 4 rows deep. A Distinguished Service Medal, a Bronze Star with Valor device, a Legion of Merit, a Meritorious Service Medal, combat patches on the right shoulder, the kind you only get if you've bled in a place most Americans can't find on a map. And on each shoulder, heavy, unmistakable, catching the late morning sunlight like 2 small explosions, 4 silver stars. 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, 4. Lawson held the jacket at arm's length. His lips parted. No sound came out. His brain tried to connect what his fingers were holding to what his eyes were seeing. The math didn't add up. The world he'd built in the last 20 minutes, the world where he was in charge and the man on the ground was nothing, cracked right down the middle. Brennan saw it next. He'd been standing over Adrian with one boot near his ribs, arms crossed, chest puffed. Now his arms dropped. He stepped back, 1 step, then another, then a third, like the jacket was a bomb with a lit fuse. "What?" Brennan's voice cracked like dry wood. "What the hell is that?" Lawson didn't answer. Couldn't answer. He turned the jacket slowly with both hands. The nameplate above the right breast pocket caught a beam of sunlight and threw it back. Powell. White letters, black background, stitched clean, regulation perfect. Lawson's eyes went from the nameplate to the stars, from the stars to the ribbons, from the ribbons to the man lying face down in the grass with blood on his lip and dirt in his silver hair. Adrian turned his head. Slowly. Grass stuck to his cheek, a smear of mud across his forehead, blood drying where the ground had split his lower lip. His hands were still cuffed behind his back. His hoodie was torn at the shoulder, but his eyes were calm, steady, unbroken, the same eyes that had stared down briefing rooms full of 3-star generals, the same eyes that had locked onto foreign commanders across negotiation tables in Kabul and Baghdad and Seoul, the same eyes that 2 sitting presidents had looked into when they needed the truth instead of politics. "My name is Adrian Powell." Quiet, level, every syllable carrying a weight that Lawson's badge could never match. "I am a 4-star general in the United States Army, commanding general of U.S. Army Forces Command. I have served this country for 41 years, 3 combat deployments, 23 countries, 2 presidential inaugurations." Lawson's arms started to sag. The jacket drooped toward the dirt. His fingers were going white around the fabric. "That jacket you're holding, the one you just shook open like a rag, has been in rooms you will never enter, briefings you will never be cleared for, ceremonies where the commander-in-chief of this nation stood 3 feet away and saluted it." Silence, complete. The birds had stopped. The children had stopped. Even the breeze seemed to pause. "So I'm going to ask you one question, officer." Adrian's voice didn't rise. It dropped, and that was worse. "Would you like to put that jacket down gently? Or would you like to add desecration of a United States military dress uniform to the list of things you'll be explaining to a federal judge?" Lawson lowered the jacket onto the bench with both hands. Slowly, gently, like it was made of glass. His fingers trembled so badly the buttons rattled against each other. Then came the engines. 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans turned into the park lot in a tight formation. Government plates, tinted windows, small American flags mounted on the hood of the lead vehicle. They stopped in a perfect line. The engines cut simultaneously. Colonel James Whitfield stepped out of the first vehicle. Full dress uniform, ribbons stacked deep, silver eagles on both shoulders. His jaw was set like concrete. 2 armed military police officers flanked him, sidearms visible, shoulders square, faces carved from granite. Whitfield crossed the grass in long, measured strides. His eyes swept the scene, the shoes in the dirt, the portfolio on the grass, the garment bag tossed aside, the toiletry kit cracked open, and his commanding general, handcuffed, bleeding, face down in a public park. Whitfield stopped 6 feet from Lawson, drew himself to full height. 6'3" of United States Army authority staring straight down into the pale, sweating face of a man who had just made the worst mistake of his life. Take your hands off the general. Low, controlled. Every syllable backed by 250 years of military command authority. Right now. Lawson's hands went to the cuffs, fumbled. His fingers were useless, fat, trembling, slick with sweat. It took him 3 tries to get the key into the lock, 3 tries that felt like 3 lifetimes. Click, click. The cuffs fell open. Adrian rose, slowly, deliberately, not because he was weak, because he wanted every single person in that park to see a man stand up from the dirt with more dignity than the men who put him there ever had. He brushed the grass from his face, wiped the blood from his lip with the back of his hand, picked up his book from the ground, dusted off the cover, closed it. Then he turned and looked at Lawson. Didn't speak, didn't blink, just looked. And Lawson, 12 years on the force, 220 pounds, a gun on his hip and a badge on his chest, looked like a boy who had just broken something that could never be fixed. The park was silent, the kind of silent that doesn't happen naturally, the kind that falls when every person in a space is holding their breath at the same time. Adrian stood with his back straight, dirt on his hoodie, grass stains on his jeans, blood drying on his lip. He didn't look at Lawson again, didn't need to. The man was already shrinking. Adrian turned to Colonel Whitfield. His voice shifted. Not louder, not angrier, just operational. The voice of a man who had commanded 200,000 soldiers and never once needed to yell. Colonel, get the Pentagon on the line. I want the Provost Marshal General's office first, then the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, then the police chief of this jurisdiction. In that order. Whitfield didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. Phone already in his hand, already dialing. The 2 MPs stepped forward and positioned themselves on either side of Adrian. Not because he needed protection now, because this was now a scene involving a 4-star general of the United States Army. And scenes like this have protocols. Lawson stood 5 feet away. His hands hung at his sides like they didn't belong to him anymore. His radio crackled. He didn't answer it. His sunglasses were still tucked into his collar. His eyes looked like 2 holes burned in a paper plate. Empty, unfocused, gone. Brennan broke first. He stepped forward. His face was the color of old milk. His voice came out thin and fractured, like a window right before it shatters. General Powell, sir, we didn't know who you... Adrian turned to him. Slow. The way a man turns when he wants every word to hit its target. You didn't need to know who I was to treat me like a human being. Brennan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. His chin started to tremble. He looked down at his boots, the boots that had stood inches from Adrian's ribs while his face was being pushed into the dirt. He had nothing, no excuse, no defense. Just the sound of his own breathing and the weight of what he'd just been part of. Lawson tried one last play. He straightened his back, cleared his throat, tried to rebuild himself from the wreckage. Sir, General, with all due respect, we responded to a legitimate call. We followed standard operating procedure. We had no way of knowing. Stop. Adrian held up one hand, palm flat. Lawson's mouth closed like a trap. You searched my belongings without my consent and without probable cause. You used physical force on a compliant, unarmed man who was sitting on a park bench reading a book. You put me on the ground. You put your knee on my back. You called me an animal. Adrian stepped closer. One step, just one. But it closed every gap that mattered. Don't stand here and say procedure to me, officer. I've written procedures. I've reviewed use of force protocols for the entire United States Army. What you did out here today wasn't procedure. It was personal. Lawson swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed like a fishing float going under. And the fact that you're only standing here stammering right now, the fact that you only care right now, is because you found out I'm a general, not because you realized what you did was wrong. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. 20 minutes later, a dark blue sedan pulled into the lot. Police Chief Harold Sutton stepped out. Suit jacket. No uniform. He'd been called at home. The sweat on his forehead said he'd driven fast. He approached Adrian with his hand extended, professional smile, damage control written all over his face. General Powell, Chief Harold Sutton. Sir, I want to personally apologize on behalf of... Adrian looked at the hand, then at Sutton's face. He didn't take it. Chief Sutton, your officers tackled a 4-star general in front of children. They called me an animal. They searched my property without cause. They put their knee on my spine while I told them I couldn't breathe. He paused. Let Sutton feel every word. We'll be having a very different conversation very soon, and it won't be in a parking lot. Sutton's hand dropped to his side. His smile collapsed. Adrian turned to Whitfield. Get Lawson and Brennan's badge numbers. I want their names, their service records, and every complaint ever filed against them on my desk by tonight. Yes, sir. Lawson and Brennan were ordered back to the station immediately. Badges surrendered. Firearms turned in. Pending investigation. They walked back to their cruiser in silence. Lawson's boots dragged on the gravel. The sound was the only thing left in the park. The story should have ended there. A general gets tackled. The cops find out. They panic. Case closed. But it didn't end there. Not even close. Because what those officers did in that park didn't stay in that park. It went everywhere. Tanya Greer posted her video that night. She didn't add music, didn't add filters, didn't add commentary, just the raw footage. 4 minutes and 38 seconds. A black man face down in the dirt. A cop's knee on his back. The words, "dirty black dog," caught crystal clear on her phone mic. The scattered belongings. The mocking, the laughter. And then, the jacket, the stars, the silence. She posted it with one sentence. This happened today at Riverside Park. I was 30 feet away. This is what I saw. By midnight, it had 500,000 views. By morning, 12 million. By the next evening, it had crossed 40 million and was climbing faster than anything the platform had seen that month. Then the second video dropped. The white father near the playground. His name was never made public, but his footage was. Different angle, closer. His camera caught what Tanya's didn't. Lawson's face during the bag search. The smirk. The way he sniffed Adrian's deodorant and made a face for laughs. The mocking voice when he said, "Your little business plan." The pleasure in his eyes when he forced Adrian to the ground. That video hit 20 million in 16 hours. The hashtag started trending before the sun came up. Hashtag General Powell, then hashtag 4 stars, then hashtag Riverside Park. They climbed the charts like rockets and stayed there for days. Cable news picked it up first, then network morning shows, then international outlets, London, Paris, Berlin, Tokyo. The story crossed oceans. A 4-star general, a man who had served his country for 41 years, who had commanded troops in combat zones, who had briefed presidents, tackled in a park because a woman didn't think a black man should be sitting on a bench. The Pentagon held a press briefing within 48 hours. The Secretary of Defense stood at the podium, jaw tight, and read a prepared statement. He called the incident a disgrace to every principle this nation's military has fought to defend. He said General Powell had his full support. He said the Department of Defense would cooperate with every investigation. Adrian gave one interview. Just one. He sat in a quiet room. No uniform. Same gray hoodie, same calm voice. He didn't shout, didn't pound the table, didn't perform outrage for the cameras. He said, "What happened to me happens every single day to black men across this country. The only difference is I had 4 stars in my bag. Most men don't. Most men just have their word, and their word is never enough." He paused, looked directly into the camera. I don't want people angry on my behalf. I want people angry on behalf of every man who went through what I went through and had no motorcade coming to save him." That clip alone got 90 million views. The investigation moved fast, faster than these things usually move. Because when the victim is a 4-star general, the system suddenly remembers how to work. Internal Affairs, led by Lieutenant Sandra Ellis, pulled the body camera footage from all 4 officers within 24 hours. The footage confirmed everything, every second. Adrian was cooperative from the first moment to the last. No resistance, no aggression, no provocation. He asked questions. He stated his rights. He said, "Please," and they put him in the dirt anyway. The 911 call was pulled next. The woman's voice was calm, almost cheerful, like she was reporting a lost dog, not destroying a man's afternoon. "There's a black male sitting by the pond with a large bag. He's been there a while, just sitting. He keeps looking toward the playground. I don't know, he doesn't look like he belongs here." She used the word black 3 times in 40 seconds. She described the bag twice. She said suspicious 4 times. She never once described an actual crime, because there wasn't one. The federal investigation hit Lawson like a freight train. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened a case under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. Federal agents reviewed Lawson's personnel file. What they found wasn't surprising. It was sickening. 9 prior complaints, 9 over 8 years, all involving black or brown residents. Excessive force during a traffic stop in 2019. Racial slurs during a pedestrian stop in 2020. An illegal vehicle search in 2021. A wrongful arrest in 2022 that was quietly settled out of court. Every single complaint had been dismissed, buried, filed away in a drawer that nobody opened. His supervisors signed off on every clearance. The system didn't fail. The system worked exactly the way it was designed to. It protected its own, until it couldn't anymore. Lawson was terminated from the force 31 days after the incident, charged with deprivation of rights under color of law, unlawful search and seizure, and excessive use of force. The trial lasted 9 days. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty. All counts. Sentenced to 36 months in federal prison. When the verdict was read, Lawson stared at the table in front of him. Didn't blink. Didn't move. His attorney put a hand on his shoulder. Lawson didn't react. He looked like a man who had already left his own body. Brennan cooperated with the investigation from day one. He gave a full statement, admitted what he did, admitted what he didn't do, which was worse. He didn't stop it, didn't question it, didn't say a word while his partner called a decorated general an animal and shoved his face into the earth. Brennan was terminated. No prison time. But his public statement was played on every network in the country. He stood at a microphone with red eyes and a shaking voice and said, "I stood there and watched. I could have stopped it. I didn't, and I'll carry that for the rest of my life." The woman who made the 911 call was identified through phone records. She was charged with filing a false police report, a misdemeanor, community service, a fine. Her name became public. Her neighbors found out. Her children's school found out. She deleted her social media within a week. And the department? Chief Sutton faced a public review board, hearing that lasted 3 days. A civilian oversight board was established for the first time in the department's history. Mandatory de-escalation training. Mandatory implicit bias training. An independent monitor assigned to review all use of force incidents for the next 5 years. 3 additional officers were flagged during the review for patterns of racial profiling. 2 were suspended without pay. 1 resigned before the findings were made public. The house that Derek Lawson built, brick by brick, complaint by complaint, burial by burial, finally came down, and this time the whole country watched it fall. 6 months later, Adrian Powell walked into a Senate hearing room on Capitol Hill. Full dress uniform, the same jacket, The same 4 stars, the same ribbons, every single one of them earned in places most people only read about in history books. The jacket that had been thrown in the dirt like a dish rag, the jacket that Lawson had shaken open like a piece of trash. It was now pressed so sharp the creases could draw blood. Adrian sat behind the microphone, adjusted it once, poured himself a glass of water from the pitcher, took a slow sip, set it down. Then he looked out at the room, the senators in their leather chairs, the cameras lined up like soldiers, the packed gallery where people stood shoulder to shoulder because there weren't enough seats. He didn't rush, didn't clear his throat, didn't shuffle papers. He just waited. The way a man waits when he knows the room will come to him. And it did. Every whisper died. Every phone went down. Every eye locked on the man behind the microphone. Then he spoke. 6 months ago, I was lying face down in the dirt in a public park. An officer's knee was on my spine. I told him I couldn't breathe. He told me I was lucky he didn't muzzle me. He called me an animal. He called me a dirty black dog. In front of children. In front of families. In front of people who watched and said nothing. The room didn't move. Didn't breathe. I'm not here today because of what happened to me. I survived it. I've survived worse. In combat zones, in foreign prisons, in situations these officers couldn't imagine in their worst nightmares. I'm here because of what happens to men who look like me every single day in this country. Men who don't have 4 stars in their bag. Men who don't have a motorcade 5 minutes away. Men whose only shield is the Constitution of the United States. And on too many days, in too many cities, in too many parks, that shield means absolutely nothing. His testimony lasted 43 minutes. It was carried live on every major network. Clips circled the globe within the hour. Legislative aides later said 3 senators were wiping their eyes before he finished. 2 others left the room to compose themselves. Within the following month, 2 bills related to police accountability were introduced. One passed committee. The other gained enough co-sponsors to guarantee a floor vote. Adrian Powell didn't just testify. He moved the machinery of government with the same quiet force he'd used to command armies. Tanya Greer, the nurse who stood 30 feet away that morning with shaking hands and a phone she refused to put down, received a commendation from the National Civil Rights Coalition at a ceremony in Atlanta. She wore her hospital scrubs under her blazer because she'd come straight from a 12-hour shift. She didn't give speeches, didn't do a press tour, didn't sign a book deal. When a reporter asked her why she kept filming instead of running, she said 5 words that became a headline in 30 countries. Because they never believe us. She went back to work the next day. Same overnight shifts, same county hospital, same tired feet at 6 in the morning. But her video lived on. It was used in police training programs across 14 states. It was shown in college classrooms from Howard to Harvard. It became evidence not just in a courtroom, but in a national conversation that refused to go quiet. The park changed, too. Not in the way parks usually change. New benches, fresh paint, a bigger lot. This was smaller, quieter, harder to ignore. Near the bench where Adrian had been sitting that Saturday morning, a small bronze plaque was installed at the base of an oak tree, eye level, right where you'd see it if you sat down to read a book. It didn't mention Adrian's name, didn't mention Lawson or Brennan or the woman who dialed 911. It said something simpler. Every person has the right to exist in this space without fear. One sentence, bolted into stone, permanent. Derek Lawson reported to a federal correctional facility 11 weeks after sentencing. 36 months. No early release. No reduced time. No special treatment. The man who had swaggered through that park like he owned it, who had called a decorated general a dirty black dog, now ate breakfast in a cafeteria with a number on his chest and a door he couldn't open. No narrative sympathy. Just the fact. Just the consequence. Brennan left law enforcement permanently. He took a job at a nonprofit working with at-risk youth in Baltimore. Whether that was guilt or genuine growth, that's not for this story to decide. But he never wore a badge again. And Adrian? He kept serving. Same discipline. Same quiet power. Same morning coffee from a steel thermos. Same bench when he visited the old neighborhood. The only thing that changed was this. Every time he stood in front of a room full of young soldiers, every time he looked into the eyes of a new generation wearing the uniform he'd given his life to, he told them one thing. Respect isn't something you earn by showing your rank. It's something every human being walks in the door with. Your job, your only job, is to never be the one who takes it away. So here's my question. And I really mean this. I want you to sit with it for a second before you answer. If Adrian Powell wasn't a 4-star general that day, if that jacket wasn't folded at the bottom of that bag, if no black SUVs rolled into that parking lot, if Colonel Whitfield never stepped out in his dress uniform, if Adrian was just a regular man, no stars, no rank, no motorcade, just a black man sitting on a bench in a nice park, reading a book on a Saturday morning, do you think those officers would have faced a single consequence? Do you think anyone would even know his name? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear it. Every single one of you, don't hold back. And if this story hit you, if it sat in your chest the way it sat in mine, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been in Adrian's shoes. Someone who's been Tanya with the shaking hands. Someone who's been the person sitting on the blanket who saw everything and said nothing. Like, subscribe, hit that bell. I'll see you in the next one.
Larson got 36 months in federal prison. 9 prior complaints exposed the system that protected him for years. It finally collapsed. But here's what I can't stop thinking about. Adrian said it himself. What happened to me happens every single day. The only difference is I had 4 stars in my bag. Most men just had their word, and the word is never enough. 4 stars saved Adrian Powell that morning. Not his rise, not his dignity, not his 41 years of service. A jacket did what his humanity couldn't, and that should disturb every single one of us. So here's what I need you to sit with tonight. If respect only kicks in when someone has rank, power, or title, was it ever really respect? Or was it just fear? And if it takes 4 stars for a black man to be treated like a human being, how many stars does it take for you? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone. If this story hit you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Respect isn't something you earn by showing your rank. It's something every person walks in the door with. Your only job is to never be the one who takes it away.